We are, in fact, live, which means I press that button and now it seems we are, in fact, recording. All right. Well, here we are again on this Labor Day. Happy Labor Day, by the way. I hope you're doing well. If you're out there watching, listening, checking this out, let me know how it sounds. Please, oh, please. I've just moved the microphone. I want to make sure I'm still sounding as delightful as you are used to hearing me. Tonight, tonight we're covering something I always assume is pretty straightforward, but as I have so often found out over the course of multiple streams, is a complete mystery. Let's call it that. A complete mystery to other people where they just struggle with it. They think it's really difficult. They freak out about it. And invariably, what is that and why does it keep telling me that make sure my source is implemented? Yeah, I would love to if I knew how. My sound alerts browser. I don't know what that means, but we're gonna have to deal with that at some point. Okie doke. Is that like a thing I can add? Hang on a minute. Let's just try this. Is there like a thing? All right. Anyway, I have no idea, but that's not the first time I've gotten that message. I want to see if I can do something about it. But while I'm here, I'm going to talk about pitching, because pitching is one of those things where I think the majority of people just absolutely stumble. And I don't want you to. I don't want you to stumble. I don't want you to think that sound alerts browser sounds. I can spell real good. Sounds alert browser. I don't know what that means, but we'll Google it because that's what we do. Okay. Anyway, so sorry, I'm staring at I know it's very exciting. I'm staring at a screen figuring out why the hell it's giving me this error message. But yeah. It's supposed to tell me at the top right if it's muted. Well, son of a bitch, it's not doing that, motherfuckers. All right, well, we'll try that. Anyway, the important thing about pitching is that you can do it. I really apologize for the delay. It's just that I'm gonna try and fix that for Wednesday's stream for sure. But for now, here we are. Pitching, the big glacier that everybody freaks out about, avoids doing, swears up and down they suck at it, swear up and down they don't like doing it, want to know all the time how to do it better. Especially they want to know how to do it when they're not at a point when they should be worrying about it. Like, I get a lot of questions. I get a lot of questions about pitching from people who are like barely done their first draft. And I can appreciate the enthusiasm. I love the enthusiasm. I think it's fantastic that you want to know like step 62 when you're on step 3. I think that's great. But between where you're at and where you need to be to pitch, there's a lot of ground you might go through that requires you or will encourage you or lead you to change the thing you're talking about. So while the tools are okay, and while it's nice to know those things and, you know, have a rough idea, the specifics are always going to be more important than the generals. And the best way to get better at pitching is to have a thing in mind that you want to pitch, rather than just go, well, how do I pitch? How do I pitch? How do I do this? How do I do that? This isn't a case where we can apply universal rules to this stuff. This isn't like, hey, how do I write a mystery? Or how do I figure out what the subject of the sentence is? It's going to be much more concrete. It's going to be much more specific to the idea you have. So instead of saying, well, how do I pitch? ? Amend your sentence. Amend your interrogatory to, how do I pitch this thing I'm writing? Because you should know the thing you're writing. You should have a better fluency with it. You should have a better sense of it, so that when it comes time to pitch, you can speak not in some broad generality like you're awkwardly reading a roadmap or a Mad Lib, because that's the kind of pitching that will just sink you and sink you quickly. Instead, I want you talking about a thing you love, your idea, whatever it might be. I want you to know it inside and out, left, right, and center, backwards, forwards, sideways, and everything in between, so that you can always come up with something, some tool, some idea, something that you can pitch with. Now, I think it's important to make this point early, and I have a feeling that I'm going to be making this point a few times. One, big point, big goal, put a gold star next to this point. It really super helps. It's really, really super helpful to have the majority of your thing written at the time you start pitching. But that does not mean you can't let the creative process of production influence some part of the pitch. But what you should avoid, what I really strongly urge you to avoid, is a habit I've seen creep into a few writers where they want to do the later steps. They want to do the pitching, they want to do the querying, they want to write the synopsis, and use that as a way to sort of like reverse engineer the text they should be writing. Oh, I'll write the query letter and that'll tell me how to finish the book. No. I mean, yes, technically I suppose it can and it could. Sure, I suppose that's, possible. But that's not the same as writing the thing and then, reverse engineering the outline. You want to have the maximum amount of potential in the prose you're writing. Make your decisions in the manuscript. Do not let the elements of the pitch or the query or the synopsis be the thing that certify or validate or etch in stone your manuscript. It's easier to go from the big stuff to the little stuff than the little stuff to the big stuff. So put a gold star next to that. It's super, super helpful, beneficial, good to have the most complete as possible picture of your whole work when you go pitch. Because if there are follow-up questions to your pitch, like if you pitch and somebody goes, well, I have a question about something, and you're not at a point where you can immediately go, oh, okay, here, let me answer it for you with certainty. So that when someone goes, oh, that's a really cool answer, like they ask you, well, how does your protagonist, how does the arc play out or something? You should be able to say, well, here's how the arc plays out, so that the answer you give is the answer they will come to expect when it comes time for them to read the manuscript. Because depending on who you're pitching, that's going to be the end result. I think maybe that's something we should put another gold star by. What's the purpose of a pitch? I used to avoid this. I used to kind of like dance around this. I don't know why. Really, frankly, truly, I don't know why I used to dance around this, because I don't know. I guess I had some expectation or something, or some horseshit nonsense idea in my head. But the truth really comes down to you're pitching so that somebody else will read your thing, period. Whether that's a consumer who's going to hear your pitch and directly go out and buy your book, whether that's an agent looking to represent you, whether that's an editor looking to publish you, whether that's a magazine person looking to produce your work, whomever. The function of a pitch is to inform and interest, that's really critical, inform and interest another person so that they'll want more information, i.e., they'll go read your stuff. It is, well, unfortunately, I think too many people make it more complicated than that. They add all these extra bells and whistles, they add all these extra rules. And they don't need to, because it really can be that simple. It really, in fact, needs to be, if not should be, really that simple. What's your thing? Leads right to a pitch. Cool, thanks for telling me. And then they go make a decision as to whether they want to follow up or not. It can really be that simple. And I know the hashtag writing community loves to make things more complicated, because that way they spend more time talking about stuff rather than, doing anything. But hey, here we are all the same. We're going to talk about how to pitch. There was recently an event, was it like 2-3 days ago, I guess, right before the weekend. There was a thing called PitMad. Now, I am well on the record in lots of places being very anti-PitMad. And, I'm still very anti-PitMad. And I have no plans on changing that opinion whatsoever. And one of the things I really think PitMad does a disservice with, one of the real big problems with PitMad, is that instead of like letting you just sort of garner attention and make sure everybody pats you on the head for doing a pretty straightforward job of pitching without, bells and whistles, they should just teach you how to pitch. Like, wouldn't the sense of PitMad be the pitch? Like, why don't you've got all these alleged experts, right? You've got all these mentors and all these important people who clearly allegedly have some kind of like education or expertise in this field, right? So rather than farm out clicks and hashtags and try to make it all about like, oh my God, there's all this stuff, you guys, and turn it into this very catty, very gossipy kind of cafeteria at high school vibe, why not educate people? You guys are the experts, right? You should have really no problem whatsoever explaining like, hey, here are the different kinds of pitches, right? You should have no trouble giving up the 3 most common kinds of pitches and the 3 most common ways they're used and the different ways each of those pitch types show up in different things and when you would use one kind versus the other and how to fix a bad pitch, right? You're the experts, right? You should know this. This should be easy for you. It's like asking a basketball player to dribble. This should be no problem for you whatsoever. You're the expert in this field, right? You know this stuff. You're a hashtag mentor, right? So what's up with that? Where's that education coming from? Oh, you're just telling people to farm out the same 5 listicles? Cool. Oh, you're just asking people to look and see what other people are doing and then do something like that? Yeah, that's great originality. Love that. Let's make sure everybody sounds the same. That's a great way of teaching individuation. Cool. So what I want to do instead is light that all on fire, like burn it all to the ground, like just take it out. Because I want to teach you how to pitch. I'm going to teach you right now, over the course of this, however long this recording takes, I'm going to teach you how to pitch. I'm going to teach you some very specific things. I'm going to teach you the 3 different kinds of pitching. I'm going to teach you when to use these pitches. I'm going to teach you when not to use these pitches. And no matter what it is you do, no matter where it is you're going with whatever it is you're making, you're going to have 3 very, very strong tools in the toolbox. All right? So, first of all, hi, viewers. It's really nice to see you. Twitch, say hi to YouTube. YouTube, say hi to Twitch. No Zoom tonight. They can go sit in the corner. They know what they did wrong. And besides, it's a Monday stream, so we're just hanging out. All right. Pitching. Fun fact. The vast majority of pitches... Hi. It's nice to see you. The vast majority of pitches die hard on the vine quickly because there's a balance in a pitch. There are 2 factors you want to try and find some mix of, some percentage of. And it is very, very rarely 50-50. But the 2 things you're trying to balance in your pitch are information and potential. Information is fact. Stuff about your story. Stuff like your character's name, what they are, who they are, what they're doing. To a degree, why they're doing it. The bad guy, the good guy, the princess, the fairy kingdom, even the stakes to some degree are information. They're stuff, facts, data, whatever you want to call it, that the reader doesn't know until they read it. So if you tell me the story of like Mario Brothers, like the first video game, it's the story of a plumber who, falls down a pipe and chases after a princess because turtles. So all those facts like plumber, princess, tunnel, turtles, all that stuff, those are all information. That's all facts we didn't know previously. When you just give facts in a pitch, just one after the other, and it doesn't matter what facts or how many facts, it just matters that there are, in fact, facts. Oh, that sentence sounded crappy, shit. But I think you know what I mean. If you just give a stream of facts, well, there's this person and they do this, and here's the bad guy and they do that, you're sort of dropping this like a hot potato in whoever the other person, the audience, the viewer. We're going to call them the audience, the viewer, the listener, the receiver. They're all the same person. The person to whom you were pitching. I don't want to call them the catcher, but the person on the other end of the pitch. If you just give them a stream of facts, you are denying them the ability to create a very critical thing that allows them to make a decision as to whether or not they want more information. You're denying them context. Because if I just give you facts, like I'm just going to tell you stuff on my table right now, okay? Just a stream of facts. There's my phone, a charger, the microphone cord, the computer, obviously, an HDMI cable, my speaker, a pen, a scratch pad, a deck of cards, and a cat. I've just given you all these facts. A pitchy? Yeah, we could call them a pitchy, I guess. You want to let's go with that. Let's try that a few times and see if it gets weird. So, we the pitcher speaking to the pitchy. Yeah, let's do it. I rattle off a stream of facts, right? You're, as the pitchy, likely gonna go, so what? Who cares? What am I supposed to do with this? Why are you telling me about your HDMI cable or your deck of cards or your phone or your charger? Like, what am I supposed to do with this information now that you've given it to me? Information by itself doesn't generate interest because there's no context for it. If I tell you stuff like a plumber travels to a magic world in order to rescue a princess, the only way that's going to spark an interest in you is if you, the pitchee, pitchee's grown on me, thanks for that. If you, the pitchee, has some kind of preconceived notion or expectation as to what some or any of those pieces of information mean. When I say plumber travels to a magical world to rescue a princess, I'm counting on your definition of plumber, magical world, or princess, or rescue, to dictate how you should feel. You're providing your own context. You're bringing that to this conversation because I've only given you information. All readers, whether they are consumers or agents or editors or publishers or print people or journalists or whomever else, other human beings, when you engage in conversation with them, one of the things they are trying to build, aside from intrapersonal connection, is context. You're giving them information. There better be something as a purpose for it. Not like in a selfish way. It's not like it's not like that idea of like, well, what have you done for me lately? Or narcissistically waiting for you to shut up so it's my turn to talk. It's not like that. It's more like you're telling me this because you want me to do something. What am I supposed to do? Like, okay, you've done this. Now what? Let's follow up. You got to move forward. Because the other 50% of that pitch, information by itself doesn't create context. How do we create context? We had this other 50%, potential. Now, when we were talking about the plumber and the princess and the magical world, I'm counting on you bringing your own potential to it because I didn't tell you anything about it. I didn't tell you about the 8-bit worlds or how the little green ferns in the background match the same shapes as the clouds in order to conserve space in the program. I didn't tell you about different kinds of Koopas, and I didn't tell you about mushroom people and all that shit because I didn't give you that stuff. So I withheld some information out of personal choice, but I still failed to deliver my potential to you, my context. I wanted you to think about this stuff in a certain way. I failed to do that, which means I have to rely on your context. And if your context for plumbers and princesses and turtles is a context that is so removed from mine, there's no way I'm going to get you on board. Let's use a different example that's maybe not so hyperbolic. Let's suppose we're going to talk about dinner. I like using food metaphors. I think mainly it's because everybody eats. But if I say, hey, dinner, let's make, I don't know, let's pick a meal. Hot dogs. All right, hot dogs. If I just say, yeah, this is what I'm making for dinner, come on over it whenever. I'll make that. And your assessment of hot dogs, based on the context you have for hot dogs, is that hot dogs are not your favorite meal, well, then you're going to say no, because you don't want any. And that's fine. That's your choice. Just like if I pitch it to you and you're like, oh, that sounds awesome, I'll be right there. You show up for dinner. Potential allows you to see or expect or create an idea or an opportunity that you're only going to get satisfaction if you engage with more stuff. You've got to do something. I give you information. Information plus potential encourages you to feel or think or accomplish something so that you can get satisfied, so that you can get more information and draw more potential and have some kind of response. I pitch you on a thing, you're going to go run out and get it. I pitch you on a dinner, you're going to come eat it. I tell you, hey, go check out this website, you go check out this website. But giving you the link alone, or just telling you like, buy book now. Book now, buy. It's not going to generate the depth of response I want, because I want you very excited, because I want you not at all doubting your pitch, or my pitch, I should say. I want you just to say, yeah, hell yeah, John's pitching, let's go. Buy this thing. Done deal. No hesitation. A lot of people, especially when they're first getting started and they hear that, they think that the whole fault, the whole flaw in the system is the hesitation. That it's in the how they deliver as opposed to the what. And yeah, if your how, and we'll talk about how over the course of this, but if the method you are using to convey your combination of information and potential, if you've got the wrong one, if you're using the wrong method, if you're coming at it the wrong way, yeah, you're gonna run into resistance. You're gonna run into people who don't understand what you're doing. For instance, if we look at one of the models for pitching called a spike, and we're going to talk about it, but for now, let's suppose the shorthand for a spike is one single piece of information is the biggest deal out of all the pieces. One piece really grabs your attention. But I use that format for a pitch for something where I'm supposed to be telling you about the multiple things a thing does. Like, it's got 4 points that you need to know. Like, showing up for a surprise birthday party, you better bring soda, and then show up at this time, and you got to come here and don't tell anybody. But if I drop it with a spike and I pitch it as, hey, just bring soda, well, there's going to be some kind of miscommunication. And we want to eliminate miscommunication between pitcher and pitchee. Pitchee is growing on me. We want to try to eliminate that miscommunication as much as possible so that our pitch has some kind of effect that we want, as opposed to a pitch where what we're pitching and how we're pitching it does not create enough potential or enough suggestion so that the pitchee can kind of roll their eyes or walk away. We don't really want that. Now, we can never force another human being to definitely engage, even if we're at our most provocative, even if we're like, I don't know, threatening their grandma. We can never demand engagement. We can at best encourage it. But we're not. We'll talk about encouragement when we get about different types of pitching. But for now, to start, consider that all pitches, and I don't care whether we're talking about poems or memoirs or fiction or nonfiction or science fiction or fantasy or job applications or interviews or figuring out how to convince somebody to go out with you on a date, whatever. Information, potential, some combination, some mix of those. Not 50-50. So some off balance, some at least 49-51% mix is going to provoke that response you're looking for in the receiver, in the pitchee, to get some kind of response that you can do something with. Brady, that's the base. But of course, if you're, a pit mad person with a hashtag mentor, you know this already. I'm essentially preaching to the choir, but I'm assuming just, for the sake of argument, there are some people out there who just need a refresher, right? They've heard all this before because Pit Mad does such a great job at educating people. It's all about the education in the hashtag writing community, isn't it? That's why we ask such insightful daily questions, right? It's all about that education. Big fan of education in that community, aren't we? So we have information and we have potential. When we zero in on one to the detriment of the other, when we put too many eggs in one basket, when we lean too hard on information, we fail to create context. We talked about that before. What happens when we fail to deliver information because we went so hard into potential? Well, there's no real cohesion then. and it sounds very salesy because I become very desperate to connect in lots of different things, like an octopus, lots of different arms out there just lashing away across very, very few connective certainties, very limited pieces of information. For example, if you want a great example of this, look at any teaser trailer for a video game or movie where we only have a limited amount of information, but then within like an hour, there's 45 different YouTube videos or something about how like 100 Easter eggs found in this, footage. What about this and what about that speculation? And who's that guy? And, whose fingers are those? And that signature, I bet that says this. And it all runs far on potential and less so on information. Because we genuinely don't know if that dude's forearms are Charlie Cox. Or if they're not. Or if, because his face is in the other part of the trailer. But that's neither here nor there. Or we don't know if, why that dude is dressed like that, or what happens to that lady, or how she changed her hair, or, well, what about those other people? Like, we don't have enough information. In the absence of information, some percentage of your audience, some percentage of your possible pitchees will fill in the gaps with their own information. This is how you get, like, it's not spoiler culture, but it's like teaser culture, where like it's all speculative, right? It's all this idea like, I heard that the next line of Macs is going to have like 45 ports, not 42. Or I heard it's going to be orange, or, this shade of, like, it's all speculation, and it's based entirely on their context, their preconceived notions, their information they've gained or fabricated elsewhere, or their hopes that they're masquerading as information. So you never really want to get like super far out. So if we're still working on that 49-51% blend, we definitely want to avoid 90-10. 90-10 is either going to be dry as hell, 90% information, 10% potential, or it's going to be really vague, 10% information, 90% who knows what it could be. So we're not at 90-10. So maybe 80-20 should be the sort of edges of our bell curve. Well, 80-20, again, this is where we start splitting hairs, and I'm looking at you, new writers. I'm literally not asking you to figure out the math and go, well, my pitch has this many words in it, so 20% of my words. No, please don't do extra math. I'm one of the cool people. You don't have to do extra math. It is not to be taken hyper literally. It is a rough approximation of the percentage. Because here comes the next big item. Pitches are really fluid. And as you get more comfortable doing them, you should be able to move in and out of different modes of pitching for different audiences with different pieces of information. Sometimes when you're pitching a book, let's say, for example, to an older crowd, you are not going to push it in the edgy way you would push it to a younger crowd. Or if you know you are pitching your book to an editor who's rejected you before, you're going to want to tailor it to address their previous concerns, perhaps, ideally, possibly, hopefully. So in building the pitch, you're balancing those two things. You're balancing potential caused by the language and word choice you use to be suggestive, open-ended, and evocative, versus information, which is concrete, like nouns and proper nouns and very definite things that have very definite meanings. This is all about your facility with language. All right, so fun fact. Ages and ages ago, like way back when I was in school, there were, and there probably still are if you dig around on Amazon, I'm sure, there were whole books talking to you about like what keywords, not so much keywords like SEO, but what specific words you want to use and what specific kind of pitch in order for you to get the best kind of response. And at the time, that stuff was secret magic, forbidden knowledge. Oh my God, there's a list of words. If I just use these words, that'll do it. And over time, as the number of people who did pitches increased, and the number of pitches out in the world increased, and the variety in pitches increased, those lists and magic concepts sort of went by the wayside. So don't go into this, whatever you're pitching, no matter what it is you're pitching, don't go into this thinking that you've just got to have magic words. Like, if I use this word in this position in this sentence, I'll get them. Because there's no guarantee anymore. Just, there was barely a guarantee before. There is definitely not a guarantee now. But again, you're the hashtag writing community. I'm preaching to the choir. You've heard this a million times. You totally know this. At best, I am an annoying refresher, right? Information, potential, fluidity with language, finding a balance relative to your audience. If you'd like a more concrete example, you probably wouldn't tell your mom that you liked a particular show or movie the same way that you would tell your best friend. Right? Just practically. They're two different people with two different interests and two different sort of focuses on the world. That's an important thing to think about when we're pitching. And I bring that up because there are different types of pitches. There are different styles to this. And knowing what kind of pitch to use in what kind of circumstance can be more effective. Sort of like how, when you've got a Swiss Army knife or a big toolbox, you want to know what sort of tool is best to use in this situation. Yeah, I could use something else, but some tools are more effective than others given certain situations. Yeah, I could totally use a spoon, but, probably a knife might be a little bit easier. Or I could, use the edge of a coin as a screwdriver, or I could just use a screwdriver. Lots of different, functional fixedness, the idea that a thing has to be used only in a certain way, has its place in things, but in pitches, that's not its place. There are different types of pitches, and by and large, for the most part, most writers, regardless of genre, regardless of what number book it is, regardless of what kind of publishing you're doing, for the most part, you're going to fall into three different kinds of pitching. And I don't care whether we're doing it on Twitter, whether we're doing it on Facebook, whether we're doing it in little Discord groups, whether we're doing it at like a Zoom kind of conferencey thing, or whether we're just hanging out, like doing it on the stoop at 2 o'clock in the morning when we're waiting for the dealer to show up, or whether we're hanging out in the back of an Uber, doing whatever. Like, there are three different kinds of pitches. They're going to get you into and out of loads of different situations where you can promote your work. 3. I mean, are there more? Absolutely. There's loads more. But for now, just take these 3, okay? Just let's go through one after the other, and equip you so that no matter what you're doing, whether we're on social media, whether we're just hanging out, whether you're verbally doing this, whether you're doing this in a tweet, whether you're texting it to somebody, whether you're, writing it in the blood of your enemies, who knows? 3 different ways to do it. Okay? In order, and this is not really an order of importance, it's just the order by which I'm grabbing them off the notes I wrote this morning. 3 different types. We're going to do a spike pitch, a hook pitch, and a sandwich pitch. They are pretty common, and if you want to scroll back around Twitter, looking at people who have stuff to pitch, and this is true whether we're writing a book or a screenplay or a movie or porn or, cat photos or their Instagram account or their YouTube channel or their whatevers. They're using one of these 3 things to some degree. Now, one is not automatically better than the other outright, but in certain situations, one can be more effective than the other. But it's not like, oh, use this one for Twitter, use this one for Twitch, use this one for what. It's not situational like that. It's more like when you are trying to accomplish fill-in-the-blank result, use this kind of pitch. The specific application is irrelevant because the pitch I would deliver in Twitter in 280 characters is more or less the same kind of pitch I would deliver if off the top of my head you were to ask me on a Wednesday night, hey, John, pitch me this book right quick. Short, it's concise. I'd probably use a spike. But having the ability to blend or fiddle with or adjust or build your own pitch types makes this a lot easier. But again, hashtag writing community people, you've probably heard this already. You've got all those mentors. You've got all those people who just are so rich with knowledge. This is probably old news for you, right? So I'm really probably just speaking to the brand new folks, people who didn't know better, right? Because for sure your mentors have covered this. I might as well be telling birds how to fly. But on we go, okay? I'm looking at my watch. My watch says it's time to kick some ass. Here we go. A spike query. Most of the time, this is the query you're going to get when you have a small amount of space and you're in a rush. If this becomes the kind of pitch you default to, sweet. Default to it. It's a good kind of pitch. It's a nice pitch to practice with. It's a super, really flexible pitch, and it doesn't have as many requirements as some of the other types. A spike pitch has the following requirements. In the list of information you have, however many pieces of information it is, between 1 and 3 pieces, ideally it's fewer because this is shorter, but you've got one sort of central axis, one kind of most important thing that you are looking to get the maximum amount of impact from. This is not going to be something like it's cheese, because contextually there's not a lot to it, but it's more like it's a big impactful thing, like it's really his sister. Anything where you would want to get this kind of response, that's where you spike. You know, the sort of like, in reality, he's been dead since the beginning of the movie. Spike. Just like a spike in volleyball. Comes up, slams the ball down. Just like how a spike is a single sort of iron thing nailed through a small hole for maximum impact. Bang, zoom, boom, spike. You prioritize one piece of information, or 1 to 3 pieces of information, depending if you have a lot of room, but you prioritize some stuff, usually all related. So if you're going to say the idea that, oh, it's really, he's been dead the whole time, you'd find stuff in and around this idea of him being dead the whole time. You wouldn't, for example, build a spike out of 3 disconnected pieces of information, like he's been dead the whole time, he's wearing shoes, and it's Thursday. Shrug? Big shrug? Large, giant, confusing shrug? Because those 3 pieces of information collectively, when unified together as a singular spike in a spike pitch, they don't do anything. Like, it's great that he's dead the whole time. Neat. And it's great that he's wearing shoes. Neat. And it's great that it's Thursday. Neat. But collectively, those 3 things don't go together well. So when you're building your spike, when you're prioritizing your piece of information so that some stuff stands out above the rest, make sure all that spiking material is in some way, shape, or form related to each other. It all has to do with the same character. It has to do with the same plot point. It has to do with the same stakes. It has to do with the same risk. Because we want the relationship of these things, 1 to 3 things, all related, because we're trying to create potential in and around the spike more so than the rest of the information. The spike is the big thing in this pitch. The spike is the big, generator. It's a moment of interest. It provokes the most attention seeking. So maybe if you're telling the story of, a young upstart lawyer who stumbles in his very first case, stumbles into a multi-million-dollar pharmaceutical insurance scam, your spike isn't going to be so much like, well, he's a lawyer. Okay. Your spike's going to be, he's never, he's barely out of law school. He just passed the bar. This is his first case. He's in over his head. He's just one guy in a small office, and they're, like, the bad guys have like 15 people, and one of them is Roy Scheider, and he's wearing a cardigan. Like, You want your spike, whatever it might be, to generate the impact. The rest of the stuff that goes with it is supportive of that spike, but is itself not a spike alone. Picking and choosing that comes down to your story, whatever your story might be. The things, now granted, on some level, I'm going to talk to the nervous people for a minute. Hey, nervous people? Hey, right here. You and me, buddy, right here. You're going to have to guess. There's some guessing involved here, okay? You're going to have to guess at what you think somebody else is going to be excited about. Yeah, you could guess wrong. Such is life. But you can hedge that bet. You're not jumping blind here. Find the stuff that excites you. You're allowed to have confidence in your own work. Really, I swear to you, you are. In fact, it's encouraged and it's mission critical at this point. Because if you're pitching, you better be confident because you're going to get a lot of rejections. So your ability to be really excited about stuff. Oh man, I can't wait to tell you about the story about the lawyer. It's okay to have confidence. Take your things that you're excited about and use them either as the spike in your pitch or use them as sort of a starting point for you to generate spikes if you're not sure. But on some level, it's a guess. On some level, you know, I'm turning the microphone on and I'm just talking and I'm hoping somebody somewhere says something, or at the very least, if, you know, one person says, hey, and then they're quiet for however many minutes, you know, I at least know that, oh, somebody's here, and then I can pretend to be talking directly to them, or nobody's here, and then I'll just treat it like I'm talking into an open mic for a Patreon thing. Oh, I love you too. It's really nice to have you here. Thank you. But on some level, you're out on that limb. When you pitch, you want to be out on that limb. Not because, oh my God, it's a limb, but because I'm trying to equip you so that if that limb breaks, if the limb snaps, if, oh my God, your pitch is tank, this sucks, you'll be competent enough to jump to another limb and try again. I want you fired up about this. I want you believing in yourself. I want you believing in your work. So when you pitch, you're going to pitch like you mean it. See what I did with the graphic? That's why it's there. We want to pitch like you mean it. No, stop it. Why did I click that? What the hell's wrong with me? I swear to Jesus. All right. Believing is important. Absolutely. Absolutely it's important. How could you do this and not believe? I talk to a lot of writers. Especially on like Pit Mad Day, and they're like, oh my God, I don't know if it's going to work. Well, then don't do it. If you can't run into a situation going, I don't know if I'm going to succeed, but I believe in my ability to try, this is not the right field for you. You're going to run into a lot more difficulty. You got to go in here knowing that you have confidence in your own tools. That's a really big deal. Why is that clicking? Stop it. I think that's my fingers. Anyway, so we've got our confidence. We're building a spike. So that spike is going to be the thing you're putting the most emphasis on in the pitch. That does not always mean you're going to put the most number of words to it in the pitch. It's not a quantity thing. But we're going to count on the quality of that item and the quality of the position you put it in the pitch for it to have the impact you're looking for. Most spike pitches are what are called backloaded or punchlined. Now, if you're not sure what those two things mean, a backloaded sentence or a backloaded paragraph or a pitch or a scene has all the important juicy stuff at the end. Think of it like lighting a fuse. And as the fuse burns down in the beginning, it sort of builds up and builds up and builds up. When we get to the end, boom! That's where we have the big ending. The back half, the back portion, the back amount is the big deal. A backloaded pitch or a punchline pitch, where does a punchline in a joke go? The end. We go through all this other stuff to set us up for the big payoff at the end. A spike can very frequently be at the end of a pitch or the end of a paragraph in a pitch. Because remember, not all pitches are going to be one sentence. Some pitches are going to be two paragraphs. You can make an argument that a query letter is itself a pitch. And you've got a couple different you've got however many paragraphs you want in a query letter. Maybe 2, maybe 3, maybe 4, maybe 5, depends on how big they are. But your spike has to stand out from the rest. Because your spike, by the nature of what it is, where it is in the query, and how it feeds into the stuff around it for context, because remember, context is what everybody's looking for. Your spike provokes potential, and along with the context, kind of ties everything together. Oh my God, what do you mean he's dead the entire time? Please tell me more. Where can I get more information? Oh, go check out this movie. What do you mean the plumber falls into an alternate world where the princess is being attacked by turtle people? Oh, well, what do I do? Well, go check out that video game. Anytime, think about it this way. Anytime you are trying to provoke or inform another person to influence them to take an action, you're pitching that action. Hey, Kevin, I would appreciate if you weren't a dick to the rest of our friends. You are pitching Kevin on the virtue of not being a dick. Hey, I really think you'd like this movie I just watched. Oh man, did you see wrestling last night? It was banana. All those things where you are trying to suggest or encourage action or response in another person is a pitch. Is a pitch kind of like an argument? Kind of, if you mean argument in like the not what you do with mean people thing on the internet, but an argument in terms of like a defensible statement, yes. A pitch is essentially a mode of argumentation. But like, don't be a jerk on the internet about it. Like, you don't want to like, in the general sense, yeah, you don't want to get in and be like, that's a fallacy. Like that's for dudes on the internet to argue about. But yeah, you want to consider a pitch a kind of argument. You are ideally in favor of the thing you're pitching. You want to pitch from the positive perspective. You would not want to pitch against your own interests. Hey man, don't read my book. That's don't do that. I mean, it takes a certain kind of swagger, and I know that sounds really awful, but if you're brand new at this and you're not sure how to do it, you don't want to start with the the contrapositive. You're not going to like my thing. Like, don't get into the heavy psychology of it. That comes way later, and that's almost always scammy. There's almost always like kind of a skeevy, greasy, car salesy vibe. If you're going to use any of those old-fashioned, what are called the white paper techniques in order to engage somebody, don't just drop it. Just nope. It's always better to talk about what you have in the pitch and build your spike around the stuff that's there, as opposed to sort of like the reverse psychology to get you to lower your defenses, because that's some garbage. So don't do that. Where can we use a spike? Use a spike anytime you definitely want to arrest attention. All of a sudden we're talking, all of a sudden we're going along, and bang, boom, here's a thing. That spike shifts your focus, shifts your attention, perks you up, makes you pay attention all of a sudden. It's, when I teach this individually with clients, it's, we're talking and we're talking and we're talking, and then all of a sudden I've grabbed your attention with triple air horns, because triple air horns are the best. But I'm looking to shift your focus and change your attention. That's the purpose of a spike. I'm bringing you this piece of information to get you to change your context and think about new things. So sometimes that spike is going to be information about your story or character. Sometimes it's going to be stakes. Sometimes it's going to be a plot reveal. By the way, just so we're clear, you can spoil in your pitch, right? That's not the point, right? It's not like, oh my God, I have this secret. No one gives a fuck about your secrets. Your job is to publish your work. You know that, right? I mean, I'm sure you do. You've got hashtag writing community. You've got mentors out the wazoo telling you a million different things. But the more clutched pearls and the more hidden behind your vest, you play your cards. Oh my God, I have these secrets. The less anybody knows what the hell you're talking about, so the less excited they're going to be, because they don't have any information. And we're back to that whole misbalance between potential and information. So how should I give a shit about your stuff? Yeah, you can spoil in your pitch. You can spoil in your query. You definitely should be spoiling in your synopsis. Spoilers is a consumer-based concern. It's built around the precious idea that you want your experience to be devoid of somebody else's influence, which is dumb because people communicate. But all the same, yeah, spoilers are dumb. Publishing is not built on spoilers. because there are people in the field called editors who need to know the spoilers so that they can help you make the story the best possible it can be. And if you're afraid to tell your editor what the spoilers are, your editor's going to have a real unpleasant conversation with you about your misunderstanding how publishing works. So be willing to spoil in a pitch, because this is one of those things. Look, we're going to have some real talk. This is one of those things where you can separate writers, people who are just like, as I refer to them, fucking around, from the people who are definitely trying to work. Because the people who get real precious about spoilers are also usually the same people who are like, oh my God, somebody's going to steal my idea. As opposed to the people who are like, I'm trying to make the best sausage possible. So I want to know how the grinder works, what kind of meat I should use, what spices I should use, and I want to know how to do it the best so that when I serve the sausage to you, or when I serve the food I'm learning how to prepare, the whole cumulative thing is delicious. I want you thinking about, we all know how the sausage is made. I want you to make the best sausage possible. I don't want to be like, ta-da, I've made sausage, because I don't want you to sound like a moron. I want you to be well empowered. I want you to be capable here. So if you ever find someone who gets real precious about spoilers, I would like you to do the following things. I'd like you to put your hands up, and I'd like you to take 2 steps backwards from them very slowly so that you don't spook them like a deer. And then I want you to very casually walk away and get quieter and quieter. And then all of a sudden we're very far away. And then you go find someone else to talk to. Please, please, please. Pitching isn't magical. You're just trying to excite people about an idea. And you should use everything you got in order to make somebody excited about your idea. And if that happens to be a spoiler as one of your big spikes, cool, man, let's do it. Because the how it works out is still going to pay off. You'll see a lot of spikes. Where do spikes show up? You'll see them on Twitter a lot for contests, because you can do them in pretty short spaces, like tweets. You might see them in Discord groups if you've got a critique group and somebody's kind of getting up in front of the room, or in a voice chat or something, and they're just putting stuff together. You could see them in newsletters where somebody's trying to, because one of the ways you can use a spike is what's called a call to action, which is where somebody's encouraging you to like click a link or put your email in a box, or sign up today, or, sign up now before 900 items go away, or, you only have 10 hours left to buy this stupid thing or whatever. Yeah, a spike is just there to provoke interest. A call to action is a kind of spike. Spikes, super useful as a, hey, I want to learn how to pitch. Spikes are great. It doesn't require a lot of headroom. It doesn't require a lot of setup. Oh my God, I have to have 10 hours before I do this. No, you should really just need 1 or 2 pieces of information, a little bit of mood, a little bit of atmosphere, and you can roll out a spike. And then over time, as you rehearse it, you'll figure out like, oh, I like phrasing it this way. I like saying it that way. It's fine. Spikes, great. Questions so far on spikes before we add some complexity? Also, hello everybody. Thank you for coming here. I didn't see you come in before. I apologize. I was ranting. Also, personal terrible tragedy happened today. I spilled mustard on my shirt. Now, that's not going to mean a lot to you guys, but if you know me really well, you will know that any kind of general disruption, like a last-minute kind of uncontrollable thing, I do not historically handle well. And I was maybe like 10 seconds away. Yeah, I spilled mustard on my shirt, and I mean, we can play it off as a joke because I guess it's kind of silly, but I'm also the sort of person who's like, I spilled mustard on my shirt. I'm not streaming for the rest of the week. I'm going to sit here and wash all my shirts just in case I spill mustard on them in the future. And I'm very proud of myself that I'm here streaming, granted in a different shirt, but yeah, I'm very proud of myself. I don't mind. I mean, it's okay. It's all right. I didn't realize that all the mustard had sort of like hydrodynamically moved to the one side of the thing I was eating, and when I pressed down on it, it just kind of dripped. So yeah, I didn't totally freak out. I mean, I washed my hands 4 times, and then I unplugged and replugged the microphone and everything, but like, I'm still freaked out about it. Yeah. It's a thing I'm going to complain about probably on Discord later. But anyway, questions on spikes? Thank you. The vast majority of your PitMad pitches are spikes. I'm glad to be streaming too. Somebody asked me earlier today if I really like doing this. I love doing this. This thrills me. It scratches a lot of itches. It reminds me of what I was doing when I was 20. It makes me happy. I love doing this. And I get to teach in a new platform, which always excites me. So, all right. I'm not seeing any questions. So on we go to the next one. Yeah, let's do the next one. So spike, real common. But what happens if we don't have... We have a lot of things that could be spikes. Are X meets Y pitches spikes? Kinda. We're going to get to X meets Y. But yeah, you can frame an X meets Y as a spike if if X or Y is itself part of the spike. X meets Y is what's called just a setup or a nested pitch. They're what we teach people when we don't know how else to teach them how to pitch, because they're relying on shared common knowledge of X and Y. LeBron meets Bugs. Is that the sequel to? Is that Bug Jam, or an Ant's Life or an Ant Jam, the combination communist socialist workers movie plus basketball? I'd be down for that. I'd be so down for that right now. But when we teach X meets Y, it's because Bugs Bunny Space Jam 2, totally. Because what we're doing is we're counting on shared knowledge of X and Y to make up the context. Thus, I do too. Thus, liberating us from the need of having to do extra pitching. When you see a pitch, just as a disclaimer, when you see a pitch with a Ready Player One with basketball, no, thank you. You go sit in the corner. Go sit right now in the corner and think about what you've done. Don't bring that in here. We don't track mud in this house. You time out. You take 5 seconds and go sit over there. Ready Player One. I'm glad you didn't make it, but it's awful. You're capable of so much more. You're better than that. I love you. Do better than that. All right, anyway. Ugh. Okay. I know you're capable of doing more. I'm not angry. I'm disappointed. All right, I'll even use my dad voice. Come on. Let's give it another shot. Promise me you'll do better next time. Do your best. Always do your best. All right, back to X plus Y, because I want to make this point. Anytime you see an X plus Y, it doesn't matter what comes after X meets Y. The writer of that pitch is counting on X plus Y to do the majority of the heavy lifting. It is itself a spike in that way, but at the same time, it's an underformed pitch because I'm relying on this other property to carry my emotional content. I am absolving myself of the responsibility of being more clever and being more independent in my thought, because I'm just going to mention other people's shit. And because you liked other people's stuff, you're going to like my stuff, even though, because if all right, look, if I really wanted to pitch stuff, if I really wanted, you can X meets Y anything. Like if I really wanted to upsell my editorial service, right? I could very easily say, hey, I can help you get published because I've helped over 300 people make not only the New York Times bestseller list, but become worldwide selling phenomenons. I can point to a lengthy, resume and backlog of people. I can point you to people to talk to. I have clients who I've been doing this for 20 years. I can point to all these different things. But the minute I can say something like, New York Times best-selling authors get edited, plus the most selling Amazon authors in certain genres get edited by me, I'm counting on those two facts to overshadow anything else I tell you. So I don't have to have a strong pitch past that. When, honestly, I really should have a strong pitch past that. Because what if I bring up an X and a Y that you, the pitchee, don't like? Right? Like if you bring up Ready Player One and, well, I like basketball, but let's pick a sport I don't like. Ready Player One in tennis, because I can't stand tennis. I don't understand. Okay. But if you were to bring me an X and a Y I don't like, how am I supposed to like your stuff? If you bring me peas and mayonnaise and tell me your stuff's just like it, what do you want me to have a positive reaction? I can't stand mayonnaise. I can't stand peas. Now I'm describing infinite jest. No. You don't rely on X meets Y to umbrella or conceal a number of, like, you still have to do the hard work. So when I look at, I've worked for publishers before, and when they're like, get on Twitter and look at pitches. All right, fine. Anybody who rolls up a pitch with, it's X meets Y, I immediately discount. Because you're gonna crutch. You're gonna kind of hide behind this thing rather than give me a pitch. Instead of going X meets Y, bring me a spike. Tell me about your story. Because that's what I'm here for. I'm not paying for another Ghostbusters. I want to know your story about paranormal people. I don't want another Romeo and Juliet. I want your story. I've got this publishing deal. Romeo and Juliet already had one. It's your turn now. Give me something. That's where a spike comes in. We also teach X meets Y format to people because we want them to feel occupied and pacified. Hey, we taught you how to pitch. Okay, goodbye. Even though we all look at them and roll our eyes. Because the hashtag writing community isn't really about writing or community. But you can come on Wednesday and we'll cover more of that. All right. So we spike. But let's say we've got all this different stuff. Remember how we talked about it? We had those 3 disparate facts. He's dead since the beginning. He's wearing shoes and it's Thursday. Rather than try and tie disparate things into one unit, what if we had multiple units? What if some of our units were stronger than others? Like, okay, so what if him being dead and him wearing shoes were nice, but it's not as interesting as it being Thursday? For whatever reason in our pitch, let's say. You can create another style of pitch called a hook pitch. This pitch is generally longer in form and is more frequently done verbally because it can rely on how we're delivering it in speech, because we can emphasize certain words, we can be quiet, we can inflect on things, we can speed our language up, we can bada bing, bada bang, bada boom, we can come up with lots of different ways to kind of disguise the tenor of our voice and the emotional goals we have. And so we use a longer form, usually longer, it doesn't have to be, but it frequently ends up being that way, to create a hook pitch. In a hook pitch, rather than having a definite piece of information that's a spike to arrest and hold our attention, the hook dangles, like a hook in the water, dangles information with a greater amount of potential. It's a, yeah, come on, you want this, come on. It's a little bit more peer pressure-y. What you're going to do to construct a hook pitch is take your pieces of information that are most interesting to you. Remember, we're still guessing. I know, anxious people, I know. But hey, it's the only way we're going to get better at this is if we jump out on some limbs together. To form our hooks, we take a piece of information that we're confident in, but we figure out how to draw potential towards it. Okay, so he's dead the entire time. That's our big twist. We want to hold that in reserve. So how do we hold that in reserve? Well, if we totally hold it in reserve, we don't mention it, and all of a sudden it's the great unknown thing. But what if we allude to it? What if we look at something like, theater owners are instructed to make sure no one is admitted after the first 5 minutes? That's what they did for Psycho way back in the day. Now, that hook takes a little piece of information, like, hey, everybody better be in a seat before the first 5 minutes of the movie's up. But it creates more potential because clearly after 5 minutes, you're going to miss out on stuff. The benefit of a hook leans in on the potential, leans in on the sort of disconnected nature of things. I got a hook here and I got a hook there. And how many hooks can a pitch have? I don't know. How much space you got? Now, I've talked about this before in some places, and some writers get real, not agitated. They get antsy. Let's go with antsy. They get real antsy. Oh my God. I got to have like 1 million hooks because I don't know I got to throw all the hooks out there. I got to get all these hooks because I got all these people and who knows what you're going to like. So I'm going to give you 45 fucking things. I mean, you can. You totally can. Should you? Well, let's if we're ever going to work on pitches, we have to think about being the pitch-e sometimes. If somebody else was coming to you with your idea, would you like to hear 45 things blasted at your face in like some hyper-manic, anxious, I don't know if I'm doing it right tone? Would you be comfortable with that? I mean, if you are, you can come do this job. I listen to pitches a lot, and they are very much kind of like, I'm going to back away now really slowly because, oh my God, sometimes they are just a lot. You don't have to shotgun everybody's face off. You don't. You just don't. Pick and choose. The hooks traffic potential. But it's not potential from the audience's side. Not potential from the pitchee's side. If I say something like chocolate cake, the potential there is your association with chocolate cake. We talked about that at the beginning. But if I give you some context to it, poisoned chocolate cake at an evil birthday party. All of a sudden, now I've given you some context, and I've made this chocolate cake a big deal. So now you're going to pay attention to the chocolate cake and who's eating the chocolate cake and what could happen if they do eat the chocolate cake. A hook pitch leans on the potential and is generally useful when you want to create suspense or the unknown or some kind of appeal, more so than just creating something out of thin air like in a spike. A hook is more provocative than a spike. But a hook generally has less information and more potential than a spike. And that, because you've got potential and you want to set up context to make sure your potential lands the way you want, that's why hooks tend to run a little long. You see this in longer form query letters. You see this in elevator pitches, 30-second spoken pitches. You see this in rehearsed pitches where it's, you have 5 minutes, go, sell me on your idea, that kind of thing. You want to take, if you ever run into those situations, by the way, you want to maximize your time. You want to speak slower. You want to maximize your time, and you want to make sure you've got a combination of spikes and hooks. When given the opportunity to pitch, and you know it's a definite thing, like you're signing up for this contest or you're going to this event or whatever, you want to make sure you've got a lot of tools at your disposal rather than just one with like 5 different flavors. A mix of spikes and hooks is better than 10 spikes, even if those 10 spikes are bangers. Because you want to be able to be, above all else, adaptable. You can turn a spike into a hook by reducing information and increasing potential. And you can turn a hook into a spike by reducing potential and increasing information. I'm making sort of a yo-yoing gesture, up and down. We're never going to go 50-50 because usually the closer you get to 50-50, the less exciting or interesting the pitch is. It just kind of feels like, oh, you're telling me stuff. And I kind of glaze over. Like you're telling me it's time to go do quarterly taxes, or the store was out of blueberries today. Oh, okay. You had to stop for gas. Wow. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, like we're talking to a relative on the phone. Make sense? A hook is only as good as the context you create for it. A spike, because a spike is primarily information, is all about its placement. That's the big significant difference. You position your spike in the wrong spot, your pitch feels lopsided and wobbly, like all of a sudden, oh my God, I gave you I said the thing too early. Okay, well, you're done. And I think we all know how unsatisfying it can be when somebody finishes something earlier than we want. See how I got around the twit? Yeah. You see what I'm doing. When we get to a hook, though, we're trying to lead somebody along. We're trying to move things in. So I'm going to keep feeding you just enough information with a lot more potential so that you're not quite filling in the blanks for me, but you're certainly like, oh, tell me more. And the only place you're ever going to get more is coming from me. I'm your only source for more. Whether that's, hey, you got to go buy my book. Hey, you got to read my manuscript. Hey, you should call me. Hey, you should email me. Click the link. Whatever. Hooks are a nice way to practice. I mean, they're very useful in theory. They're excellent in theory. They're excellent in execution. But if you ever want to practice a hook. And then convert it into a spike. And then take it back to a hook. And come up with a couple different ways to do it. Play around with how much context you give. Figure out what words you lean. When you write your pitch out, figure out what words you lean on. And you can tell that because as you write different pitches, if the same phrases come up over and over, or the same writing style shows up, 3 words, comma, rest of the sentence shows up more than once, twice, every paragraph starts with it. You always have a sentence that starts with but, and then you introduce some danger or stakes. Those are all types of patterning. They act like fingerprints that can help identify either things that are very, very obvious weaknesses in a pitch or just opportunities for you to improve. They're not yet full-blown giant red flags of doom, but they're on their way to being shaky. Hooks, I don't think get enough coverage. I would love to see more people do more with hooks. But here's the downside. Hooks don't make for interesting contests. Hooks are great for business. They're great when you're looking for clients, when you're creating sales pages, when you're writing sales copy, when you're selling your book direct or hand to hand, or when you're trying to like really get out there. They're also great for stuff that isn't a book. So if you're creating, let's say, art pieces or soap or porn or pictures of your dog or who knows what, hooks are way better than spikes in those cases because you're stepping outside the normal selling chains. You're going in a different direction, so hooks can be more engaging. A great example of this, by the way, go look at anybody who's advertising their OnlyFans, or I guess right now it would be Fansly and Pocket Stars, the alternatives to OnlyFans, because, you know, they're better. Those men, women, and people who advertise their sex work, they're using far more hooks than spikes because they're trying to create a context for you to engage with them. It isn't just like body parts. It's body parts plus some implications, plus some opportunities. That's a hook. They're trying to get you to fill in some mental imagery and connect some dots that they're not outright saying. That's the power of a hook. You can hit an emotional button a lot harder with a hook than a spike because the reader, the pitchee, has to engage with it more. The way it was, all right, so short version of a story. In the early 2000s, I was working in radio, and this was sort of the beginning of the whole, I might be really dating myself. This was sort of the beginning of the early like internet sex culture where everybody was all like age, sex, location, and everybody was just like, you know, enjoying each other virtually. And it was not uncommon. This was really my first experience where I found out like dudes just send pictures of their junk to people. Think of it this way. Trying to seduce somebody into engaging in personal pleasures collectively, you're going to use a lot more hooks than if you're going to drop a spike like a dick pic. A spike is going to provoke an immediate response, good or bad. It's very definitive. Ah! Whereas a hook encourages and leads. Hey, what about this and this and this and this? And then all those other 15 things that you're bringing to the party thinking I'm talking about those same things. Welcome to the internet. Exactly. So spikes and hooks are going to be your go-to toolboxes. And it doesn't matter if we're talking about your first book, your 10th book, whether we're talking about science fiction, whether we're talking about romance, whether we're talking about poetry, whether we're talking about whatever. Spikes and hooks, man, they're how we engage each other in order to make sales. And whether we're talking about direct-to-consumer, like, hey, buy my book, I'm self-published, or, hey, agent, rep me, or, hey, publisher, print my stuff without an agent, whatever it might be. Hook and spike. Everybody clear so far? I'm going to get more tea in my face. Hello, viewers. It's really nice to see. What happened? I'm gonna try a thing now. Just heads up. I'm gonna try a thing. So I have this button. That didn't do anything. Shit. I have to fix that later. All right, I'm learning a lot. I added more buttons to the board, and I don't get it. I don't think I set it up right. Anyway. Well, at least it didn't crash everything, so that's good. Okay. Hooks and spikes. I got one more type of pitch to cover, then we're going to talk about how to fix pitches. Okay? Third kind of pitch type. Granted, remember, these are not the only kinds of pitches you'll see out in the world, but they're the three more common ones you will see running around the hashtag writing community, as well as all of its associated writing spaces. We covered spikes, we covered hooks. Now we get a little bit more abstract. Now you got to get out on a little bit thinner limb with me. Come over this way. Over here, a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. Do you prefer people watching you on Twitch or YouTube? That's a great question. Whichever one works better for you. I don't have a preference. I like Twitch because I get to look at metrics while they happen, but for a lot of people, YouTube is a better experience. So you do whatever makes you happy, Troy. Thank you so much for asking. I don't know if I'm a bad streamer because I don't have like an opinion. I just want you to watch. I just want you to hang out. I just want you to ask questions. Whatever platform allows you to feel best and do all that, that's what I'm for. Either way, I appreciate your time and attention, as always. It's good to see you. Great question. I'm going to think about that. I don't think my answer is going to change, but I'm definitely going to think about it. But I want to get abstract here. I want to play around a little bit. I want to work in our space where we have this sort of sense of, well, hooks and everything are all about potential and, oh, I'll make you happy. Oh, Troy, you already made me happy. You didn't have to move at all, man. You do whatever you want to do. You already made me happy. You made me happy by walking in the door and being here. You didn't have to go to any extra trouble. I really appreciate it, but I was already happy to see you show up. So, we're out here on this limb. We know the hook. We know the spike. What if we have a whole mess of stuff and we don't really have a lot of confidence? What if we got a couple different things and we're not quite sure how to tie all the pieces together and it kind of feels like the bus is going over the side of the cliff and we're plummeting and we don't know if we're going to succeed or fail and we're really freaked out? What do we do? Good news. There's a pitch type for you. It's called a sandwich pitch. A sandwich pitch. It's a terrible name. I didn't name it. It comes from the 70s. But a sandwich pitch involves taking things that could be spikes if you pushed on them some more, and things that could be hooks if you gave them more potential. So just facts that don't entirely go anywhere. Stuff that's context but not exactly well developed. And it sandwiches them all amid each other so that the cumulative effect of this plus this said this way with this position over here with this 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4, the whole thing turns into something we want to digest. So this would be where you take your maybe not strongest ideas and try to package them together in a new way. Use different sentence lengths, use different sentence structure, use different word choice. Maybe put a comma up in there. Maybe, make a second sentence. Do something with it so that we get to see the cumulative effect as opposed to the spike where we were counting on one thing to do the heavy lifting, or the hook where we're counting on potential to do the heavy lifting, or the XY where we're counting on that whole umbrella to do the heavy lifting with everything else kind of trailing underneath. A sandwich is connected, slightly disparate, slightly messy, slightly, I'm just trying stuff here, ideas pulled together. For example, if we were to pitch, let me think of something here. Let me think of a TV show I just watched. What did I just endure? All right, so let's say we're pitching a sitcom, right? So the sitcom is generally an ensemble where we have lots of different people, and there's lots of different sort of little plots. There might be a whole season plot that covers one or two characters. Will they or won't they get together? But by and large, it's a lot of contained little pieces. We couldn't necessarily pitch watching the whole show on the strength of one episode, because one episode is not enough of a snapshot of this whole sort of vibe. So what we'd want to do is take a couple disparate pieces, a little bit here and a little bit there and a little bit this and a little bit that, a little bit about this character, a little bit about that character, a little bit about the atmosphere, a little bit about the context, kind of pile them all together into a sandwich pitch, find a way to kind of finesse the language so that instead of saying, it's the story of, 4 people who live in and around each other in an upscale, expensive neighborhood in New York City, instead of detailing out their foibles and misadventures, we say it's a show about nothing. Or it's a show about what TV executives think nerds are like, perpetuating the worst stereotypes of white people, privileged women, classism, racism, and ableism. We could do that too. And then we package it with a popular pop song, and then all of a sudden the show's on for like 70 years, and the girl from Blossom is in it. We could do lots of different things. Yeah, it's horrible. It's awful. Don't watch it. You deserve better. We all deserve better art in our lives. But as an example of a sandwich pitch, a sitcom is a great thing because we can't just center it. It's not like a single drama where it's like, hey, Kiefer Sutherland is going to be an American capitalist and a colonialist for 6 years, and he's going to shoot a lot of people and scream. We can't frame it around one guy. We got to frame it around the group, but the group individually doesn't have a lot of tissue because they're not meant to be viewed individually. If you yank any of the friends out of Friends, they're missing something because, one, they're not really well-developed characters, but two, they're not meant to be viewed individually. It's the opposite of an MPOV story where we can take the Tyrion chapter out of the book and just enjoy the Tyrion chapter or skip ahead to the Jon Snow chapter. A sandwich pitch is great for the sort of leftovers, great for the stuff that we couldn't quite make important enough or make interesting enough in other pitches. We shovel it together, kind of disguise the seams, roll it out. You're going to see sandwich pitches in a lot of nervous situations. People who don't know what they're doing. People who swear up and down they've Googled it a lot and they've read, air quotes, all the books. But when it comes down to like, okay, go do it, nope. They haven't quite managed to find the spikes or the hooks. They haven't quite managed to find the balance. A lot of malformed, incomplete, half-baked, underdeveloped pitches are sandwich pitches. Now, this is not to say that you should avoid the sandwich pitch at all costs. There are times when a sandwich pitch is fantastic. Like if you have a big, giant project with a ton of stuff, and you are both incapable of making strong enough decisions to say these are the important factors, or there's just like a ton of them, yeah, sandwich pitches are great. But by and large, there are some hefty weaknesses to a sandwich pitch. You don't want the seams examined in a sandwich pitch. We want to see the sandwich as a whole. And if you lean a little bit too much, or you're a little bit too vague, or you're trying a little too hard, which you can do through language, whether that's too many verb phrases or too many adverbs, or the sentences are crazy long or something, where you really, it becomes apparent in the delivery that you're trying too hard, because we're going to talk about how to fix pitches in a minute. But sandwich pitches are high risk, high reward. When done well, a sandwich pitch, for me, this is John's opinion corner, a sandwich pitch to me has always indicated somebody who knows how to pitch. You can hand them 5 totally unrelated things or poorly related things, and they will find a way to make that group of 5 things interesting. It might take a lot more potential, it might take a lot more embellishment, it might take some thinking, but you can do it. But by and large, I would prefer, especially when you're new to pitching or when you're trying to get better at it, you're trying to develop the skill, stick to hooks, stick to spikes, alternate between the two, come up with a couple different, think of a golf bag, lots of different clubs in there, lots of hooks, lots of spikes, different approaches to it. Sandwich, if you have to. But if you're new, if we're still working on it, I'd prefer you hold off. Now, before we deal with how to fix pitches, that does bring me to an interesting point. Let's suppose that while you're practicing your pitches, you are immediately struck with the idea that you suck at this and your idea sucks because you just aren't enthused about your idea. And you're worried right now. You're thinking about your work, you're listening to me talk, and you're like, oh my God, I don't know how to pitch my stuff. That must mean my idea sucks. No, relax. It does not mean that. It doesn't mean that at all. Just because you can't, right at this second, at the drop of a dime, oh my God, pitch. That doesn't mean you're sunk. It just means that on the spot, and I wouldn't expect you to, on the spot, be able to pitch. If you can, great. It's not required. Don't freak out. It does not automatically mean that your whole thing is garbage and that you need to start over. If anything needs to be started over, it's just going to be the pitch. Because this is how we tie this into the whole stream of publication. And I want to get like way up on the microphone here, so let me kill this music. I'm going to get way up here on this microphone so that you definitely hear me. When you get rejected, the vast majority of your rejections stem from your pitch. Because if your pitch is really bad, nobody stopped and read the manuscript. So let's say you write a query letter, and your query letter is god awful. Like, it's a bad query letter. It doesn't matter if your first 5 pages of your manuscript are perfect, if they're pristine, if they're the most idealized idea ever. If the query letter stunk, nobody's opening that file. So when you get rejected and your first instinct is to jump to the manuscript and hack it apart with a ton of like chainsaws, you are misunderstanding the entire process. Because the vast majority of rejections stem from how the idea was presented, which is the pitch. Because we can take, I don't know, think of a perfect movie. Think of a movie you would say everybody should watch. Doesn't matter what it is. But if we found a way to make it sound unappealing, we haven't detracted from the story at all. We haven't harmed the film whatsoever. But we've made it sound unappealing so that people who had the option of watching it have decided not to. Not because the film exists, but because of how we pitched it. Your first instinct upon facing rejection should not be, oh my God, my book sucks. It's, okay, that pitch didn't work. Okay, I learned something new. This pitch, set up this way with these things, didn't work. What if I reorganize it? What if I tried something totally different? What if I took it apart? What if I added this? What if I did that? Only after you burn through your supply of pitches, only after you go through lots of different iterations and you exhaust every kind of pitch, and you're always facing rejection at that point, over and over and over and over and over, and you've gotten help with it, and you've done everything you can, and you've made all the improvements you can in your pitch, and you're still facing rejection after that, then go look at the manuscript. Then go see if those pages are an issue. But when you jump right to the pages being a problem, you are glossing over a substantial part of the whole process. And yes, just for the sake of those people whom I know will either comment on YouTube or DM me on Twitter later, yeah, if the manuscript is really good, it will save, air quotes, a bad query letter. But if they're reading a bad query and then moving to the manuscript, they're already on the fence. If you write an absolute dud of a query, they're not going to the manuscript. They don't have the time or the interest. All right. I've covered 3 pitches. Let's spend some time. Let's spend about half an hour or so talking about how to fix a pitch. There are loads of different reasons as to why a pitch doesn't work. There are, in fact, so many, I could talk for 6 hours and probably not cover all of them. So I'm not going to bother. I'm going to give you a couple ones that are very common that I have seen in the last 15 days. And I'll tell you how to fix them. Some of these are going to require like individual word changes, and we're going to talk about that type. Some of them are going to require what are called delivery changes, which is how you're presenting it. Some of them are going to be what are called substantial or structural changes, which are something else. So, loads of different tools here. For now, let's start with the beginning. Let's start with the real basic stuff. Your pitch doesn't work because of a delivery issue. A delivery issue or a delivery red flag on a pitch is a pitch that is just, it's probably got good ideas in it, but how you're getting them across isn't working for the listener, the pitchee, the receiver. Now, if you are doing this verbally, it's a complete lack of confidence and an unintentional problem. You know, you're delivering it like no one should pay attention to you. That is different than something that is fundamentally, you know, out of your control, or something that you have to deal with or cope with in the course of delivery. We're not talking about like ableism here, or we're not talking about like some kind of learning difficulty that inhibits the ability to produce. I'm talking about how you've been offered this chance to pitch, and you do it in a half-assed way. Like, well, yeah, you know, like there's a thing, like there's this, like I wrote this story, and it's okay. Like, okay, so it's in space, and like there's a princess and the Death Star and like robots, and like there's a Wookiee, and you know, it's okay. There's better stories though. That is a problem in delivery. The majority of delivery problems stem from usually one or two things. One, you need some confidence. You are allowed to be confident in your work. You are allowed to believe that your shit's really good. Not perfect, not flawless, not infinitely better than everyone else's. That'll come later. But for now, you're allowed to believe that you're good at this. And you can be thankful and grateful for the opportunity to do so, and you can go out there and give your best speech. Hey, thanks so much for the opportunity. Let me tell you this pitch. All right, so imagine a space opera where a young plucky farm boy uses his space biplane to save the world from fascism. Also, there are laser swords and British actors. Mic drop. In your head, you give yourself some air horns. Delivery problems are really fixable with practice. Practice and reinforcement. Hell yeah, that's a good-ass pitch. Let's go. Let's do it. Or if you're a client, you will often hear me say, fuck yeah, kill it, do it, get some. Because, yeah, it's aggressive. And I think that sounds silly. and it makes me giggle. And I get really excited when my clients do, give good pitches, because it's awesome to see them be excited and be proud of their work. It's not arrogance. It's not selfishness. You worked hard on this thing, didn't you? So let's go. Let's put a spotlight to it. Let's show it off. If you are uncomfortable in that spotlight, why are you pitching? Part of this job, part of this career, and you're saying it's a job, you're saying it's a career, you're saying it's going to be this thing you want to do so that for the next 30 years you don't have to worry about your mortgage. You want to do this instead of working a day job for the man. You want this to be your career, right? Well, part of that means you're going to have to talk about your work. Part of that means you're going to have to pitch. Part of that means you're going to have to be proud of what you do. You are the first person who should be proud of it. I will be your second, happily, but you got to be the first. If you roll up and say, okay, I'm not confident, but I know John is, yeah, I'm confident, but you're also putting some extra weight on me here to do it for you, be confident for you. And that's an awful lot of pressure, bro. That's not kind of the relationship we have. So have your own confidence. Delivery problems are manageable with repetition. Just practice it. Practice typing it. Hey, can I run a pitch past you? Type. What do you think? Would you check this book out? Put the title in all caps. Make sure you're spelling everything right. Please spell your own characters' names right. It's really important. You're doing all the basics of whatever kind of pitch you're looking for. Yeah, you can be excited about your stuff. Delivery is a very common thing. Repetition and support usually fix it. Usually. Every once in a while, you run into a delivery issue where you've just got all the right pieces, but they're in the wrong order because you get nervous and you're trying not to forget stuff. And that's why we should practice. And that's why somebody should come along and go, hey, I love this. This is great. But I think your second point is really your first point. Why aren't you starting there? Just flip those two. And you workshop it. You play around with it. You see what you can get. Hello, everybody who came in. I saw my viewer numbers spike. It's really nice to see you. I'm watching now my viewer numbers drop. Thanks for coming in and checking this out. It's delightful to have you here. Thank you. Delivery problems. Super fixable. Second kind. Individual per word level problems. Most commonly, this is going to be patterning. What is patterning? Patterning is a giant editorial issue. And I'm going to mention this and you're going to go, ugh, because I bet you're doing it in your manuscript. Patterning is where you either per page, per chapter, per act, or per book repeat things over and over and over again. Like the same word starts every paragraph on a single page. Or there's always 3 words and a comma, then the rest of the sentence is the first sentence of a paragraph. Or every time you have dialogue, you have a word in quotes, then the dialogue tag, then the rest of the sentence. You are repeating specific, and it's not just those things, but you have some element, some kind of writing. You're always using semicolons in the last sentence of your paragraph, whatever it might be. You're always, you've always got had gone, or you've got a lot of that's, or you're using some colons, or you've got a lot of indented lists, or who knows what. But you're repeating the same elements over and over on some amount of text. Per paragraph, per page, per chapter, per act, per whole book. Yeah, they're pretty harsh. Patterning is a giant editorial issue because it suggests 2 things, and you're certainly not going to like these, but patterning suggests 2 things. 1, the author doesn't know any other way to construct their own idea. 2, the author doesn't give a shit about any other way to construct their idea. Neither of those things editorially are really great ideas. And when it happens in a pitch, you're going to see the same idea crop up in the same place, more or less, in every pitch. Like they're just locked into this idea of telling you that, that's the princess and she's trying to escape the kingdom. Or this is about a horse. Or, he's a rogue with a heart of gold. And it shows up in more or less the same spot over and over and over and over again. And while the idea itself individually is not a bad idea, how you are presenting it and where you are positioning it in the pitch is the problem. You can have the princess, trying to escape the city, or the rogue with the heart of gold in the manuscript. That's fine. No one is saying you can't. But when it is always the third sentence in your pitch, when it is always the second thing you talk about, oh God, how quickly can I get away from you? You want to be flexible here. You want to be adaptable. It's not the idea, it's the position and the context it draws. Patterning is the most common experience with this. Editorially, in a manuscript, how do you fix it? You hire an editor. You get somebody who isn't you, who hasn't read the book before, who doesn't have the same kind of emotional biases or psychological blind spots as maybe a beta reader who's read it 7 times has, or you've done it 1,000,000 times. You bring somebody new in and say, fix this. Apply your expertise and experience and fix this. And then it gets fixed. And then you learn something like, oh shit, I do that thing all the time. I've just learned a different way to do it. Now I won't make that mistake so frequently. I've become a better writer. Yay! That's how you fix it. That's important. We want that. What we don't want for patterning is to double down. I have seen this. I have dealt with this in the last 7 days. When you point out to somebody, hey, do you realize that in chapter 5, every paragraph starts with a the? And I say, maybe you want to break that up a little bit. The word they lock on is maybe. And then you go, nah, I don't want to. I'm going to do more of it. All right, so humans are wired to look for patterns. We like patterns. Pattern recognition helps keep us alive, because there could be, saber-toothed tigers lurking in the high grass. We look for patterns. When we see the same pattern over and over and over and over, and we assess that there is no immediate change or threat to it. Oh, it just starts with a the again. Okay, yep, more of the same, more of the same. No problems, no difficulties. We're more of the same, more of the same. We get lulled into the sense of like, well, we just know it's coming. We stop getting as interested. We stop getting as excited. We slow down. We detach. We start wondering like, oh shit, I guess I better check my email. And I wonder what else is going on. And hey, did that thing happen yet? And immediately we're unplugged from the book. In a pitch, that's where you lose the reader. That's where you lose your pitchy. When you do something like that, rather than double down, change it in the next one. Now, there are some people who aren't going to notice this. You're going to pitch so many things to so many people, they're not going to realize that every 7th word was just. It'll go away. Fine, whatever. They didn't get it. They might like it. They might not. But going forward, be conscious of it. This is why you want to get into the habit of both writing down and verbalizing, or communicating in some way, shape, or form, your pitches. Even though, yeah, I know, it's for Twitter. It's for the hashtag writing community. You're just going to type it out. But read it out loud to your cat, to your fish, to your plants, to your partner, to your glass of tea, to your cup of coffee, to your whatever. Read it. Practice it. What would you change? Do you like the sound of that? If somebody else was reading it to you, would you dig it? Be willing to interpret your own material in multiple forms of media. What they used to do way back in the day was to tell you to record on okay, I'm going to date myself, on a dictaphone, record your stuff, and then randomly at some other time play it back and see if you like it. And if you do, great, use it. If not, fix it. Patterning kills. It slows everything down. What's another giant editorial semi-structural word choice issue. Okay, here's another one. We're going to call this the but or the until. You see this in genre pitches all the time, where we have a couple sentences that sort of set the mood. Everything's cool. Check this out. I'm giving you information. And then there's usually a sentence. Usually it's an odd number sentence. Usually it's the end of a paragraph before we transition to another paragraph that we're going to act as a hinge, a fulcrum that's going to tilt us. And it's going to usually start with but, until, or some other word to indicate a difference. But that all changes when Kevin comes to town. And everything's okay in the kingdom until that one fateful morning. And what everybody's going for, what the intention is this. When all of a sudden, we're really radically coming up with stuff. But what it ends up sounding like is something more like, and it went until that one faithful day, the Fire Nation attacked. That's less exciting. When we know it's coming, when we see it coming, it loses some of the impact. But I get it. You're using that last sentence in the first paragraph to transition to the second paragraph. Okay. We know that second paragraph is going to change tempo. We're going to shift into a different gear. We're going to talk about something different. But do we have to make the transition so shitty? One of the favorite things I really like, I know I'm going to get a note from YouTube about I'm cursing too much. I know. It's a real thing. And it's one of the reasons why I'm thinking about taking Monday streams and just doing them on Twitch and not putting them on YouTube, but the material is really good. Like the Moonfall movie. Yeah, the one where the moon leaves Earth because the moon's just enough, I'm leaving this relationship. You're not meeting any of my needs. I'm going to go move across town with my sister. Yeah, Moonfall. The one where only Halle Berry can save us. Moonfall. The moon just leaves. It just leaves. It just leaves. Like, this date is done. I'm out. Go. It's the moon. We know it's coming. We know this awkward transition has to happen. We know it's going to be a thing. What can we do? We need to make that transition. We need to go from one paragraph to the next. How do we disguise it? What structure can we use to mask it? Well, what if we turned it into a spike? What if we isolated it on its own line? What if we shortened it? What if we changed the way we frame the sentence? What if we used different words? I don't know what the Moonfall movie's about other than the moon just fucks off. But let's make up the Moonfall movie. We're just going to pretend, okay? We're going to pretend. Halle Berry is a moon scientist. I don't know. Just roll with me. Halle Berry's a moon scientist. I don't know what they're called. Halle Berry's a moon scientist, and she loves her job, but she's struggling to balance her work and her kids. I don't know. Let's just go real cliche on this, okay? Is it really Halle Berry's a moon? I'm just guessing. I'm just grabbing the most cliched that ever cliched. So Halle Berry's a moon scientist who's struggling to... Moonologist? Yes. Moonologist. Moonologist. That was supposed to be air horns. God damn it, buttons. Moonologist. So Halle Berry is a moonologist who's struggling to deal with the rigors of her job, but also her failing marriage or her independent, sassy kid who's probably going to get threatened about 2/3 of the way through the movie. But she's really trying her best because ultimately at heart she's a good person because she's Halle Berry, because she's the only protagonist in the goddamn story you're supposed to care about. And, she's trying her best, and she's an individualist scientist who's willing to rebel against the norm of the other moon people. I don't know, the Lunar Council. Let's just really fuck this shit up. And now the stumbling point would be, and that all changes one day until the moon leaves. And we might cloak that to, and everything is fine until the day the moon fucks off. We can make it lots of things, right? We can do a lot with it, right? But we know it's coming. So why did we have to have it as the end point of the first paragraph? Now, the old hacky way to do it would be to take it and make it a question to frame the first paragraph. What happens when the moon leaves? That's by the way, if you're curious, if you're thinking like, oh shit, that's how I'm going to do it, John, just know that every time you start your pitch with a question, you sound like a fourth grade book report where you're quoting something out of a quote you got online. You sound like you don't know what you're doing when you start with a question. Just a heads up, but feel free to start with a question if you want. #writing community. So rather than have moonologist Holly Berry start with a question like, what happens when the moon leaves? No, please don't. Do you want to sit in the corner again? No, don't start by quoting the dictionary. The dictionary defines the moon as the thing that can't leave us. Oh, God. I had a girlfriend once say that to me. Yeah, don't quote the dictionary. Don't do that whole dictionary. No, nope. Not going to happen. Not cool. No way. So rather than frame the awkward part as the bottom of a paragraph, we could stick it on its own sentence. Holly Berry is struggling to balance the moonology with her precocious, obnoxious child who's later going to go on and do other B movies, as well as, random character actors telling her she needs to follow the rules. But I don't like the sentence, and that all changes when the moon fucks off. I want to do something different with it. So I'm going to take that idea of the moon leaving, and I'm either going to follow it up with the idea of leaving. Holly Berry is somebody who never leaves anything behind. And turn that sentence into, until the moon leaves her. Then the moon leaves. And all of a sudden, I've changed the context. The idea is still the same. The moon's going away. Bye-bye. But I'm changing how you, the listener, are interpreting it. And I'm changing its position so that it's no longer 2 sentences, maybe 3 sentences, then the twist, then 3 more sentences. I'm playing with its position. That's how you break up patterning. That's how you disguise an element in your story. That's how you make an effective spike in your pitch a little less lazy or a little less overt. You don't change what the thing is. Like, we're not going to suddenly go, oh, by the way, the moon is a kangaroo. We are instead going to change the presentation of the thing, because a pitch is all about presentation, because we're trying to build potential with our information. We want you to feel something. We want you to think something. We want you to, I guess, watch this movie. I don't know why. Maybe we lost a bet. I don't know. Maybe somebody's got an alimony payment. I don't know. But all the same, those are structural things. Some of the more insidious ones, some of the harder ones that you can only really spot individually, which also happen to be one of the more common issues with pitching. Your pitch has a real weak ending. Like, you started off real strong because you had you only had like 1 or 2 spikes. And you put them up front because you wanted to make sure the reader was paying attention. You wanted to make sure the other person was like, oh, but then you fizzle out because you didn't space your stuff out. You didn't control the flow of information well enough. Like, what else does this Moonfall movie have? We have Holly Berry and the moon leaves. Well, what else you got? Recipes? Anybody, like, wear a hat? Something? Anything else? If we know we only have 1 or 2 strong points, why would you position them next to each other at the top of your pitch? Space them out. That's not bad. That's not wrong. It's your space. You get to use this however you want. Space them out. Side note, if you really want to split hairs and get real technical, when you have multiple spikes and you spread them out, they stop being spikes. They're technically called tent poles because they're holding up the tent. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you know you only have 1 or 2 strong points, Holly Berry and the moon, putting them next to each other, well, what else am I going to do for the rest of this pitch? I mean, I know what I did. I watched the trailer and I was like, really? Oh, okay. And then I went on about my day. And then I just proceeded to make fun of it. And I continue to make fun of it. And I will continue to make fun of it thereafter. So when you have these elements and you're okay with your delivery, because it is admittedly a beautiful trailer to look at, and you're not really having any trouble in what it's about, but you've stacked it up in such a way that I don't know what the hell else is going on. I'll give you another example because I just talked about this with somebody today. So Amazon has this Wheel of Time series. I watched the trailer today. Now, I'm not a Wheel of Time guy. I tried. I swear to you. I promise. I even read it so that somebody would sleep with me. I really tried. I didn't like it. I didn't go all the way through. I read enough of it to be sort of conversant, and then I'm like, you know what? I can literally read a million other things, so I did. But I watched this trailer, knowing that I'm not a Wheel of Time guy, and it was okay. No, it is not worse than specifically the last season of Game of Thrones, but I mean, from everybody I know, they have a lot of high hopes. But my question, my challenge, why is that where it is? I think this needs to come up a little bit. There. My thinking is this, and I don't mean to single Troy out, but I want to address Troy's comment about him having high hopes for the show. I would love to have high hopes for this show. I would love that. But I also remember the last fantasy show I had high hopes for. And I remember how that thing ended. I don't want to go through that again. When the thing I'm presented ends poorly, whether it's a pitch or a show or a series or a book or a comic or whatever, when the thing I am presented ends poorly, I am less likely to re-engage with similar material. It's also, a really long series, and that can be daunting. Well, yeah, I mean, if it doesn't take much to entertain you, I mean, I'm hoping there's some butts. Honestly, legit, like that's my thing. I'm just hoping like, oh, there are some butts? Cool. I'm down. Really won't take much. It's an hour. Somebody got it. Are there butts? Is there something I can put on in the background? Is like the music okay? If there's music, if the music is okay and there's some butts, I'm in. I don't care about the rest of the show. I'll just stare periodically and listen and go on about my life. But when a pitch is unsatisfying, when a pitch fails to elicit emotional content from me, and I'm left sort of like sitting there like, well, what was that? No, you're not off topic. I did. I enjoyed The Witcher very much. I look forward to the second season. I have not seen the cartoon. I am put off the cartoon on two factors. One, and I can tie this into pitching because I only heard about it from secondhand. The intensity with which it was pissed to me. You know, like people were like, "Oh my God, John, you got to watch the cartoon." Whoa, slow down there, Chief. That anytime somebody comes like firing on all cylinders to me without a clear like, John, here is a specific reason why you will like it. Like, hey, John, we know you're really into like character development. Check this out because there's strong characters. Or, John, there's butts in the first 20 seconds, man. You're going to love it. Side note, that's how the Black Widow movie was pitched to me. John, you're going to love the Black Widow movie. The camera sits on her ass like the majority of the time. And then, oh, by the way, about 40 minutes in, it picks up speed. Cool. That's all I needed. I'm in. But if you're just like, you got to watch it. You got to check it out. No, I don't. Don't tell me what to do. I'm defiant by nature. When a pitch comes untailored to the audience, there should always be a fourth pitch that involves butts. For me, man, if you can bring up butts in most contexts, I'm in. Oh, hey, look. everybody, hey, look at this. Check this out. It's like spam and stuff. Isn't that super cool? Why am I not? I don't want. I'll deal with that later. Cigarette butts? Yeah, well, they used to, but I don't smoke anymore. It's been a while since I smoked. It's been like, when did I last smoke? 97? 97. Anyway, yeah, we'll deal with that. Anyway, I lost the spam. Made me lose my train of thought. Here we go. Spam. When a pitch isn't tailored to the audience, like that spam, the pitchee doesn't know how to react to it. So they're going to default to their baseline. Whoa, what's going on? Why should I care? Because remember, the audience is always looking for context. And if you just roll up and kind of give me a milquetoast middle of the road, you should just check it out. It makes it sound like you're telling that to everybody rather than just to me. I know you're just talking to me specifically. You could have gone the extra half step and found a thing that you know I'm into. It would have helped. And again, those things come down to practice. Now, I've been talking for 2 hours. I have covered a ton of stuff on pitching. So let's go over the basics one last time, and then we'll get on out of here. Pitching transcends genre. Pitching transcends book type, book length, debut, not debut. Pitching transcends how you're publishing, all that stuff. Pitching's job is to balance or keep mobile some flow of information plus the flow of potential. Pitching is designed to elicit a response in the listener, in the pitchee, in the receiver. That response might be to take an action, or it might be to seek more information, it might be to agree, but you're trying to get a response out of them. That's different than getting a rise out of them where you're just pushing buttons to be an asshole. We have the whole rest of the internet for that. Whereas pitching is purposeful. Ideally, you're going to tailor those pitches to your audience. We have talked about types of pitching. A spike, where we have specific information put into a specific position to elicit response or provoke attention. A hook, where we have specific information used to elicit potential and lead people forward to think about different things. And we have a sandwich, where we're counting on the aggregate of information and potential to lead people forward. Your most common problems have to do with a lack of practice, a confidence type, a general decision in structure, and almost all of them are going to be fixed by rewriting the pitch, coming at it in a different direction, no longer carrying the assumptions from one pitch to the next, just starting fresh. And one last point to close us out on. When you get rejected, and oh boy howdy, are you going to get rejected? They're not rejecting you. They're rejecting the pitch, because the pitch is the point of contact they have. A bad pitch does not automatically mean bad manuscript. So when you get rejected, don't jump to the manuscript and say, that's the reason why this sucked. Look at the pitch. Look at your query. Look at how you talked about it. Address that first before you look elsewhere. Let's take like 5-ish minutes or so and ask and see if anybody has any questions. Anybody? Anybody? It's cool if you don't. That's totally fine. If I could add, when you get rejected, the editor often gives some, yes. The editor often gives some advice on fixing your pitch or manuscript. People should take that advice. Yes. Yes, yes. Sometimes, not always, but when the editor gives you advice, do something with it. Do not ignore it. Do not say, well, fuck that guy. Absolutely. I'm so glad to have you here, Tim. It was really delightful. Where was I? Yeah, when an editor gives you advice, follow up. Do something with it. It's probably for a good reason. All right. Should you only pitch a completed manuscript? We covered this at the beginning. I don't think I was clear enough. Usually, yes. There are times where something being 99 or 95 to 99% completed, still having one or two last things you got to do, it's still pitchable. But by and large, you want to pitch your complete work 99 times out of 100. Now, if we're talking specifically about querying, yes, you only want to query your completed work. But if we're just pitching because we're in a pitch thing with our buddies and we're just hanging out and we're just bouncing pitches off each other, that's a different thing. But when the stakes are such that the result of an accepted pitch means the project moves forward, you want that manuscript complete. You should always be in the habit of finishing your work anyway. Good question. Anything else? Twitch, YouTube, random spam person who's going to get blocked so hard. Well, thank you. Pitching is a thing I love talking about. It makes me very happy. Goodbye, spam person. We never knew you. Okay, let's get out of here, shall we? Yeah, let's get out of here. All right. So thanks so much for being here. I really appreciate your time, focus, and attention. I hope I helped explain some pitch stuff. Thanks for giving me a chance to do that. The next time I'm right here, the next time you will hear me in your ears will be Wednesday, the day after tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern when we're going to do the writer's chat. The questions are... there's some banging questions coming up for this week. Please bring your own if you have some. Absolutely don't feel like you can't contribute. But I will see you right here on Twitch and YouTube Twitch and YouTube on Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern for even more stream goodness. Thanks so much for being here. I think the world of you. Please take care of yourself. Take care of somebody else. I love you. I'll talk to you soon.